The experience we've had on Crossrail has been very much about the how to build things. And I think that is often the easiest understanding of digital construction. It's the use of digital technologies, building information management, sensors, control systems, advanced vehicles and equipment to deliver more efficient, safer, more sustainable infrastructure solutions. And Crossrail's used quite a lot of that in this process. But I think increasingly people are now realizing that digital also needs to refer to the what. In other words, what we're building. And I think we're beginning to see the first signs now of infrastructure assets, buildings, structures, systems that are able to both understand their own condition, so they can feed back information from sensors across the asset, and also to interpret it, and to interpret that in the context of what's around them, the other buildings, the other systems. And ultimately to align how they are operated with the business, with the function that goes on inside the building. When you start to look at it like that, I think you're then into a very different game, and that's getting close to the digital, to the smart infrastructure that I think is possible. I mean, Crossrail's applied BIM rigorously across all of the whole of the program. And although it preceded the BIM level 2 requirement, it is going to deliver pretty close to BIM level 2 by the end of it. And that of course means that a whole range of other things can now be done using that digital framework. So we've been trialling and testing and now using in for real a number of sensor technologies which have allowed digital information about the condition of the tunnel ring, about settlement information to be recorded, captured, transmitted and then processed. We've been applying a whole range of software, apps as well as software, proper software, to use digital information to help to deliver the railway, the structures, the assets more efficiently. Time saving in construction is really something that can be achieved in a way that would never have been possible before digital applications started to come in. And it's interesting to reflect, of course, that at the start of Crossrail, the iPad had not yet been marketed. Now if you walk onto a Crossrail site, the chances are you will see a foreman, a supervisor, an operator with an adapted PPE jacket for an iPad with elastic on it to stop it falling, and the iPad is now another tool on the construction site. Particularly when you're dealing with something like tunnelling, which is a very costly, still quite high-risk activity. And you look at the techniques that it's only really in fact Crossrail began some of the changes, at the time of the changes, but it's really changed much from the way it was done by the Victorians. But now you can start to see the evolution of robotic tunnelling machines, for example. And that's been translated into other areas. So Crossrail has used, or is using, robotic drilling machines for once the tunnel's complete. You've then got to put 250,000 holes in them to hang all the overhead power lines, the ducts, the trays, the signalling, all that sort of stuff. And that's a very slow, time-consuming, quite dangerous task. People lying on their back, drilling into the ceiling, because obviously the holes are at the top, and the top is 6 meters up, so it's a long way away. So we've employed a robotic drilling machine, which one of our contractors has brought to the project, which is just fantastic. Now, that sort of thing, even 10 years ago, was pie in the sky. If you arrive on a Crossrail site now, you're quite likely to see a drone flying around carrying out inaccessible inspections, or simply checking routine data that would take someone half an hour to climb up all the scaffolding, take the photograph, take the measurement, whatever. Now you can fly a drone up and it can do it automatically. So I think it's the increased level of true automation, which of course brings with it potential for productivity increases, which is not something the construction industry has been very good at over the last sort of 20-30 years. While the manufacturing industry has improved its productivity noticeably over that time, construction's been pretty flat. So it's the gradual move. And, traditionally the construction industry is sort of muddy, Wellington boots, construction workers in all weathers, and it's a pretty unpleasant place to be. And there's always going to be a bit of that. But increasingly now it's becoming a sophisticated, high technology, remotely controlled, robotic, digital-based activity, which is actually, and I think we'll see this with hindsight, we're in the middle of I think a radical transformation period. Well, I mean, Crossrail has, from the start, sought to leave a legacy. Moving London forward is the strapline, and it has been trying to do that, as well as the industry. So Innovate 18 fitted that pattern well, pioneering example of a way of doing something different on a big program. I think it has begun to catch on. Thames Tideway are now in the process of, they begin to roll out their own innovation program, which I think they're going to call the Big Think. High Speed 2 have an innovation program. They've adopted a slightly different approach, but that's fine. The fact is they've got one, and there's sort of feeling that it's now part of these big programs. We've spoken to all of the major programs, everything in various stages of delivery, and we've also spoken to Network Rail, Highways England, the Environment Agency, and all of them are interested in setting up their own innovation programs. So with that in mind, and with the need to leave a legacy that's not just a kind of file on a website, and I have to say the Crossrail Learning Legacy website has got all of this on it, so it's there as a reference source. But that's very different from a live program that's actually being driven by real people, which brings some action with it. We're in the process of setting up I3P, which is the Infrastructure Industry Innovation Platform, and the idea is that the innovation programs have a very strong association with the leadership and with the people that work on the program itself. So Crossrail, Innovate 18, Tideway, the Big Thing, HS2 will have their own branding. That's really important, and the safety that's created by that enables innovation. So we do want to break that up, but at the same time, what we want to be able to do is to share across the industry. And sharing has always been the fundamental, starting principle for Innovate 18. It wasn't technology or in digital or whatever. It was simply having a mechanism for sharing ideas, and with it the leadership to do that. So the I3P will be a sharing mechanism. It will have a bit of software. There'll be a website. You pay a membership fee, you can join it. The membership fee covers the cost of a team from the Knowledge Transfer Network to run it. And then there'll be a forum, which in the first instance will be chaired by Andy Mitchell from Thames Tideway, which will be initially just a kind of light touch governance and just to make sure it's all working. But actually it's there to pick up industry-wide themes, industry-wide areas of innovation that transcend any particular program or project, and also to act as a link into research and development activity that might be going on in the universities, in the catapults within UK or elsewhere within the industry. So it has the potential to not only make sure that we share and to keep the momentum going on the innovation, but to translate that tactical innovation into a much more strategic approach. The advanced application of this digital stuff that we've got floating around now, as people now are beginning to look at BIM and the virtual models they're creating and are suddenly realizing just how powerful they are. And part of the power of them is being able to visualize. And I think the augmented and virtual reality that is beginning now to emerge into the industry is going to be a real game changer. There is, I think, a touch of irony that, of course, the organizations that have created a lot of that have come from the gaming industry. So the merger of the gaming industry and the BIM technologies, if you like, I think is going to be a really, really interesting time, because that's the point at which remote operation within a virtual environment becomes a possibility. So you're completely removing people from some really quite risky, dangerous environments, or environmentally hazardous in terms of fumes or emissions or dust. You can take them out completely. You can operate from within that environment. And although in the past there have been lots of questions about, well, will the accuracy be good enough? Will quality be good enough? Will you be able to spot what's going on? The truth is that in the past, the human element of this chain has always been the weakest bit, because of the quality, the regularities, the moods, all the rest of it that are the characteristics of the human are still very prevalent. Now, with the increasing use of robots, with the increasing use of automated machines, this sort of virtual environment is going to, and it's going to change it, because it means you can visualize. It means you can link the manufacturing in a factory with the design house, with the construction, with the management, all into one virtual space, which is going to completely transform the way that elements of the assets are made. They won't necessarily now be made on site. They'll be made in a factory pre-manufactured, maybe production manufactured as well. And that, bringing that together with the process benefits of thinking about how you do things in the virtual world. I mean, you've got things like Oculus Rift. We've got an immersion cube at Crossrail now, where you can take a team into a cube and project the BIM model around it, and then move around. We haven't quite got the floor moving yet, but that's a more advanced stage. There are ones available. The Transport Systems Catapult has one of those. So you walk on the floor, and the BIM model follows you around. I mean, this is very clever stuff. But being able to visualize as a group, and visualize remotely, is going to transform the way that we manufacture stuff, the way that we build stuff, and then really, really important stuff, how we use it, both in terms of the operator and in terms of the business that is based on the asset. Clearly there are the big companies that either develop and sell BIM and the software and the technologies, or the big design houses that use it, or even the contractors now who are using the design software as well. And they're a critical part, and they can bring value, and they can bring the weight of effort that comes with a big organisation. But one of the opportunities that Innovate 18 has created has been for a whole range of small startup entrepreneur SMEs to enter the market, and some of the ideas they're bringing are really pushing the boundaries. And the advice we give them all the time is network, share, and don't be constrained by what's conventional now. And most of them lap that up immediately, and if anything, we have to then apply some constraint to what they're doing to make it practical in the real world. But they are really pushing the boundaries, and I think one of the industry challenges perhaps in the near future is to be able to bridge the gap sometimes between a small startup, or even not necessarily a small startup, but a small company that wishes to stay small because it can then be agile and it's got the innovation potential. There's a rich seam of innovation potential there, linking that and bringing them together with the slightly bigger, or indeed very big, like Crossrail, which bring with them the characteristics, the process, the non-pejorative bureaucracy that's essential for us to have probity and have all the audits and all the rest of it, but it makes it very difficult for a small startup to engage. So bringing those two together, I think, is going to be one of the roles too of this innovation process that we've energized. The principal theme is going to be the Crossrail experience, because we are it's at its most value now. In a year's time, of course, it'll be Tideways experience. So now is the time to talk about it. So I'm going to talk about the conditions that are needed in a big program, big organisation, for innovation to start, to kick off, and for it to be able to support it through its life. I'll talk a little bit about the strategy that we've adopted, and the strengths and weaknesses of that, and the value of that. I will talk about how it's gone. I'll say at this stage it has been fantastically successful, both in terms of the straight return on investment, but also, of course, in terms of the forest fire that we started. The snowball is rolling, if you want to mix the metaphors. And then we'll talk a little bit about where it's going in the future. So it should be a great opportunity to sort of introduce people who may not necessarily have been as aware of what's going on. The opportunity to actually talk to other people, because we do not have the preserve of all innovation on Crossrail, and the only way we often find out what else we could use is to come to events like the Digital Construction Week. So I'm looking forward to seeing what else is going on in the industry, finding out what other people are doing, and sharing their experience.